My name is Rosie, 32 years old, a logistics officer in the Army. I'm sitting at my parents' oak dining table, clenching my teeth to keep from hurling the plate of roasted lamb into their faces. 15 minutes ago, my father pushed a contract toward me. He demanded I withdraw my entire retirement savings and hand it over to Marcus, the hollow future brother-in-law smirking opposite me. Even more nauseating, the business plan he just flaunted to the family is the very plan I spent dozens of sleepless nights writing at the barracks. He stole it. When I refused to sign, my mother took a sip of red wine, her voice dry. Don't be so selfish, Rosie. A girl in the service doesn't need that much money anyway. Let the family grow. Today is the 24th, my birthday, and they are feeding me to a thief. They have no idea what I'm about to do. His launch party next month will be a slaughterhouse. Please let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever been backed into a corner by your own blood. The smell of the roasted lamb used to be my favorite. Tonight, it just smells like grease and betrayal. A thick, white film of fat is already cooling on the edge of my plate. I watch it. I focus on it because if I look up at my father, I might actually lose it. Thomas Marsh taps his knuckles against the heavy oak. It is a slow, rhythmic sound. Thud. 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 He is wearing his family man mask, the one he uses for church and country club mixers, but his eyes are fixed on that paper. It is a death sentence for my future, printed in cheap, smudged ink. 200,000, Rosie, he says. His voice is smooth, like he's doing me a favor. It is sitting in your account doing nothing. Meanwhile, Marcus has a vision. He's family now, and family is the only thing that matters. I look across the table. Marcus is leaning back, one arm draped over the chair. He is fidgeting with a Hublot watch that probably cost more than my car. A watch he is definitely paying for in installments he can't afford. He won't meet my eyes. He knows. He knows he dug through my digital files while I was home last month. He knows every single freight route and security algorithm in that folder belongs to me. I look at my hands. They are rough. My knuckles are scarred from years of moving heavy crates and fixing engines in places where the heat melts your boots. I spent 8 years eating chalky meals out of brown plastic bags, saving every cent of my hazard pay. I didn't buy jewelry. I didn't go on vacations. I built a wall of cash to protect myself when I finally put the uniform away. And now, my father wants to hand the keys to that wall to a man who couldn't balance a checkbook to save his life. The numbers don't work, Dad, I say. My voice is flat. No emotion. This plan he showed you, it requires insurance premiums for high-end goods that he hasn't even factored in. It is a fantasy. Marcus scoffs, finally looking up. Rosie, stick to the warehouse stuff. This is big-picture thinking. You've been in the dirt too long. You've lost touch with how the real world works. My mother, Susan, clears her throat. It is a sharp, delicate sound that cuts through the tension. She dabs her lips with a linen napkin, acting as if we are discussing the weather instead of grand larceny. Let's not be unpleasant, she says, smiling that empty smile. Marcus is launching his firm next month. It is going to be the event of the season. I've already spoken to the florist. We're doing the white orchid gates. She pauses, looking at me with eyes as cold as the silver she's holding. It is $5,000 for the deposit, Rosie. I'll need you to handle that tonight. Your sister needs this to be perfect. The silence that follows is heavy. Today is May 24th. I am 32 today. Not one person has said happy birthday. Not a card, not a cake, just a $5,000 bill for a thief's floral arrangement. Alyssa, sitting next to Marcus, throws her Prada bag onto the empty chair beside her. The leather hit makes a dull thud. She rolls her eyes and lets out a long, dramatic sigh. Seriously, Rosie, don't make that face, Alyssa snaps. You're just a glorified shipping clerk for the government. You get a steady check and a pension. Stop being so greedy with your money. Pay for the flowers and stop making everyone uncomfortable. You're embarrassing us. I feel a familiar stillness settle over me. It is the same feeling I get when a shipment goes missing or a truck breaks down in a red zone. I don't scream. I don't argue. I calculate. They think I'm hesitating because I'm weak. They think they've worn me down. I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. My thumb hovers over the screen. I watch Marcus's face. He has this smug, satisfied look, like he's already won. He thinks he's getting my retirement fund next. Tap. There, I say, my voice low. 5,000. It is done. Susan beams at me, her mask back in place. See? I knew you'd understand, dear. Family first. I stand up. My chair doesn't scrape against the floor. I move with a precision they will never understand. I don't look at the lamb. I don't look at the contract. I should get going, I tell them. Early morning. I walk out the front door without looking back. The evening air in Louisville is humid, thick with the smell of cut grass and old money. I get into my car, the gravel crunching under my tires. My heart isn't racing. It is steady. I hit the first contact on my speed dial. Maya, I say, staring at the lit windows of the house. It is Rosie. I just paid for the flowers. He took the bait. I put the car in gear. I need you to pull everything, I continue, my voice cold as steel. I want my father's entire credit history. Every loan, every mortgage, every cent he's moved in the last 10 years. And Maya? Check the signatures on Marcus's new business loans. I have a feeling they're going to look very familiar. I drive away, leaving the glowing house in the rearview mirror. They think they just took $5,000 from me. They don't realize I just bought the front row seat to their destruction. I climb the 3 flights of stairs to my studio apartment. Each step groans under my weight. The hallway smells like damp carpet and the neighbor's burnt toast. I don't turn on the light when I get inside. I don't need to. The neon sign from the laundromat across the street pulses pink and blue, casting long, sharp shadows across my floorboards. I go straight to the small kitchen counter. My coffee from this morning is sitting there, cold and black. A thin, oily film has formed on the top. I drink it in 3 gulps. The bitter taste is the only thing that feels real right now. I sit at my metal desk in the corner. My back is straight, a habit I can't shake, even when I'm alone. I reach for the bottom drawer and punch the code into the lock. Click. I don't keep jewelry or mementos here. I keep the proof. I pull out a thick, overstuffed folder. These are the receipts. For 8 years, I have lived like a ghost so I could send money home. Every wire transfer, every check marked family support. I spread them out. I do the math again on a crumpled napkin. $212,000. That's a house in a quiet neighborhood. That's a life with a yard and a dog. Instead, I'm living in a shoebox with a leaky faucet while Thomas Marsh treats my paycheck like a personal ATM. My thumb catches on the edge of a faded, yellowed bank slip. The paper is brittle, almost like it's ready to turn to dust. Suddenly, the neon light of the apartment disappears. I'm 12 again. It's my birthday. I'm in the kitchen of the Louisville house, wearing a white apron that's 3 sizes too big. Thomas is hosting a dinner for his associates, men in expensive suits who talk too loud and laugh even louder. My job is to clear the plates and make sure no glass stays empty. I remember the smell of the cigar smoke drifting through the swinging doors. It made my eyes water. A man, one of my father's business partners, stops me near the sink. He's red-faced and smells like expensive scotch. He smiles and slips something into my apron pocket. "For the birthday girl," he whispers. "Keep it quiet." I feel the crisp edges of a $20 bill against my leg. It feels like a secret treasure. I'm already thinking about the book I want to buy. I'm thinking about a bag of real candy, not the stuff my mother buys on sale at the dollar store. Something that belongs only to me. The party ends. The house goes quiet. I'm at the sink, scrubbing the grease off the porcelain plates. The swinging door hits the wall with a bang. Thomas walks in. He doesn't ask me how my day was. He doesn't say happy birthday. He just points at my apron. "Give it here," he says. His voice is a low rumble. I freeze, my hands dripping with gray dishwater. "What?" He doesn't repeat himself. He reaches out, his hand heavy and smelling of tobacco. He shoves his fingers into my apron pocket and jerks the $20 bill out. I flinch as his knuckles scrape against my hip. He smooths the bill out, folds it, and tucks it into his leather wallet without looking at me. That was mine, I whisper. My voice is thin, trembling. Thomas looks at me like I'm an annoyance. Nothing in this house is yours, Rosie, he says. That 20 covers the water you used for your bath this morning. You want to live under my roof? You pay your way. Don't be ungrateful. The door swings shut. I stand there in the dark kitchen, the soapy water cooling around my red, chapped hands. That was the beginning. It never stopped. When I was 16, I worked 30 hours a week at a grocery store to pay for my own braces. My teeth were crooked and it hurt to eat. Thomas told me he didn't have the money. 2 weeks later, I walked home to find a shiny black sports car parked in the driveway. It was for Alyssa. A sweet 16 gift, Thomas called it. I stood on the sidewalk, feeling the cold metal of the wire in my mouth, watching her scream with joy. I had $12 in my pocket. She had a 5-figure engine. The shrill ring of my phone snaps me back to the present. It's Maya. I pick up on the second ring. Rosie, she says. Her voice is tight, professional. I've been digging through the public filings. It's worse than the dinner table talk. Give it to me straight, I say. I pick up a pen and hold it tight. Thomas has been taking out secondary loans against the house, she says. Predatory stuff, high interest. He's been using Marcus's shell company as a front to shuffle the cash. But here's the kicker. I found the latest application for Marcus's new venture. I wait, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. It's a $50 million line of credit, Maya says. Thomas signed as the guarantor, but he added a co-signer, Rosie. He used your work history, your credit score, and your government records. He forged your signature. I feel a cold, sharp blade of clarity cut through the bitter knot in my chest. So if Marcus fails, I say, I'm the one the banks come for. Exactly, Maya says. 50 million. They'll take everything you have and everything you'll ever make. They're setting you up to be the fall girl for Marcus's bankruptcy. I look down at the receipts in the folder. $212,000. It wasn't enough for them. They didn't just want the fruit of my labor, they wanted the soul of it. They wanted to bury me so they could stay afloat. I stand up and walk to the window. The neon light hits my face. I'm not the 12-year-old in the apron anymore. I'm the one who knows how the system works. Thomas hasn't changed. He's still reaching into my pocket. He's still trying to make me pay for the water I drink. If you have ever felt like your own family was treating you like a bank account instead of a person, hit that like button. It is a lonely feeling, knowing the people who raised you are the same ones trying to bury you. Comment the word truth if you have ever had to work twice as hard just to keep what is yours. Your stories matter. Subscribe so you don't miss how I turn this $50 million trap into their prison. I hang up the phone. I don't cry. I don't pace. I open my laptop. The blue light reflects in my eyes. Okay, Thomas, I whisper to the empty room. You want my signature? I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. The clock on the diner wall hums, a low electric buzz that grates against the silence of 3 a.m. Outside, the Louisville rain streaks the windows in oily lines, reflecting the flickering neon of a nearby gas station. The air inside smells of old grease, burnt coffee, and floor cleaner that didn't quite do the job. I sit in a corner booth, the cracked vinyl sticking to my skin even through my jeans. My back is away from the door, always. Maya slides a heavy manila folder across the Formica table. She looks tired, her eyes rimmed with the kind of red that only comes from staring at legal fine print for 12 hours straight. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't have to. The weight of the paper says enough. I open the folder. My hands are steady, a habit from years of checking shipping logs while the ground shook from distant sirens. I turn the first page. There it is. Marcus's name is on the cover in a bold gold font that screams, fraud. But inside, it's all mine. Every routing algorithm, every security checkpoint, every contingency plan for high-value freight. I spent dozens of nights over a flickering laptop in a tent halfway across the world, sweating through my shirt while I figured out how to move millions of dollars in equipment through mud and chaos. It wasn't just a business plan. It was my exit strategy. My ticket to a life where I didn't have to carry a rucksack or answer to anyone. And Marcus just took it. He reached into my life and cut out the heart of it while I was sleeping. I flip to the middle of the document. My eyes catch on a line of red text. He's lazy. So lazy he didn't even bother to rephrase my cost-benefit analysis. But he did make one change. He struck through the high-end freight insurance line. He slashed the premiums to the bone, dropping his bid by 30% to undercut the competition and grab the attention of Heritage Cask. He's selling them a security plan with a giant, gaping hole in the middle. He's betting their inventory on a lie just to see his name on a corporate letterhead. He's meeting their board tomorrow morning, Maya whispers, her voice barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. I know, I say. I close the folder. The sound is sharp, like a door slamming shut. The next morning, the sun is a dull, gray smear over the Louisville skyline. I don't wear a uniform. I wear a plain charcoal shirt and work boots that have seen better days. I walk into the lobby of Heritage Cask. It's all glass and polished stone, the kind of place Thomas Marsh would sell his soul to be invited into. I don't ask for a meeting. I don't demand to be heard. I walk up to the receptionist, a woman with a tight bun and a look that says, I don't belong here. For the director, I say, placing a thin 3-page packet on the counter. It's a risk analysis regarding their new logistics bid. He has a full schedule today, she says, not looking at the folder. Tell him if he signs that contract without reading page 2, he's personally liable for the first $10 million in losses, I say. My voice is low, flat, and absolute. He'll find the time. I turn and walk out before she can respond. I don't look back. I can feel the weight of the building behind me, a giant of industry about to realize they're being sold a lemon by a man in a borrowed silk suit. By evening, I'm back in my studio apartment. The only light comes from my laptop screen, casting a cold glow across my face. My phone buzzes on the desk. It's an encrypted file from Maya, the final piece of the puzzle. I open the PDF. It's the secondary insurance guarantee Marcus tried to hide in the fine print of the bank loan. I scroll to the very last page. There it is. A signature. Not Marcus's. Not mine. Thomas Marsh. My father didn't just give Marcus my work. He put himself on the hook for $50 million to make sure the bank would release the funds. He bet the family estate, the house, and every cent he ever pretended to have on a man who stole a business plan he doesn't even understand. I lean back in my chair. The shadows in the room seem to deepen. I pick up a red pen from the desk and draw a slow, thick circle around my father's name. Thomas thinks he's building a legacy. He thinks he's finally buying his way into the club. He doesn't realize he just handed me the match and the gasoline. He spent 30 years telling me I was just a shipping clerk, someone who handled the dirty work so the real men could lead. He ignored my birthdays, he took my tip money, and he treated my service like a hobby he could exploit. Now, his entire world is tied to a stolen plan that I've already sabotaged. I look at the red circle on the screen. A small, cold smile tugs at the corner of my mouth. It's not the smile of a daughter. It's the smile of someone who has spent her life calculating the exact moment to let the weight drop. Happy birthday to me, Dad, I whisper to the empty room. I reach for my phone and type a single message to Maya. Check the secondary signatures on the Heritage contract. If they match the loan, he's done. The machine is in motion now. There is no stopping it. Marcus is about to walk into a boardroom full of people who have just been told his plan is a suicide note. And when he falls, he's taking Thomas with him. I close the laptop. The room goes pitch black. The only sound is the rain hitting the glass, steady and relentless. The game hasn't just changed. It's over. They just haven't heard the whistle yet. The phone vibrates against the scarred wood of my kitchen table. Susan's voice comes through the speaker, thin and sharp as a razor blade. Be at the house in an hour, Rosie. Thomas has a strategy to discuss. Don't be late. She hangs up before I can breathe. No, how are you? No, happy belated birthday. Just a summons. I pull up to the Marsh estate. The gravel crunches under my tires, a sound like grinding teeth. The house looks the same. White pillars, manicured lawn, a facade of perfection that hides the rot underneath. Inside, the air smells of lemon furniture wax and Thomas's expensive bourbon. Thomas is standing by the fireplace, a glass in his hand. He looks at me like I'm a line item on a budget he's trying to cut. Marcus is there too, lounging in a leather armchair, a cigar smoldering in the crystal ashtray. He doesn't get up, he just smirks. "We're moving into a new phase, Rosie," Thomas says, his voice booming with a fake confidence that doesn't reach his eyes. "Legacy, that's what matters now." He slides a single sheet of paper across the coffee table. It's a share certificate. "I'm giving you 5% of Marcus's new firm. It's a generous start for someone with your limited background." I look at the paper. Then I look at the second document hidden underneath. It's a waiver. A total surrender of my logistics plan. In exchange for 5% of a company built on a lie, I have to sign away every hour of sleep I lost in that tent halfway across the world. Marcus leans forward, blowing a thick cloud of blue smoke toward the ceiling. "Think of it as an upgrade, Rosie. You've spent your life doing the grunt work. Moving boxes, running errands for the government. You've got that small-town, stable check mind." He taps his Hublot watch. "I'm the brain. I'm the one who knows how to scale. You should be grateful for a seat at the table." Alyssa walks in, her heels clicking like a metronome on the hardwood. She tosses her Prada bag onto the sofa and looks at my worn boots with a sneer. "Just sign it, Rosie. You're lucky they're even letting you play along. You're a glorified gopher." Marcus is a visionary. Don't embarrass the family by being greedy. I don't say a word. I don't argue. I just pick up the paper, fold it once, and slide it back. I stand up and walk out. The silence behind me is heavy, thick with their arrogance. Later that night, I'm back in my apartment. The neon light from the street reflects off the cold coffee in my mug. Maya sends the final file. It's a bank statement from Thomas's retirement fund, a $200,000 withdrawal. My chest tightens. For 8 years, I sent money home. "For the roof," Thomas would say. "The taxes are up," Susan would whine. I lived on dirt and salt so they could keep their legacy standing. I thought I was fixing a home. Instead, I was funding a thief. I zoom in on the signature at the bottom of the wire transfer. It's Thomas's name, but the handwriting is off. The T has a sharp, jagged hook at the bottom. The S drags long. I've seen Marcus sign for lunch before. It's his hand. He didn't just convince Thomas to invest. He forged his father-in-law's name to drain the last of the Marsh savings. Marcus is a parasite, and Thomas is too proud to admit he's been bled dry. Sorrow is a luxury I can't afford. I reach for my laptop. The next afternoon, the sky is a flat, bruised gray. I walk into a private equity office on the edge of the city. The lobby is quiet, smelling of expensive carpet and stale air. The man behind the desk looks at me with bored eyes until I lay the black folder down. "I'm here about the Marsh debt," I say. My voice is steady, a low hum of absolute intent. Thomas's house is leveraged to the hilt. He's 3 months behind on the secondary loans he took to keep Marcus's shell company alive. The bank wants out. They want someone to take the risk off their books. I push the paperwork forward. I've spent the morning setting up a private LLC. It's funded by every cent of my savings and the disability pay I earned from the injury that still aches when it rains. It's everything I have. The man looks at the numbers. He looks at my ID. He taps his pen against the desk. "You realize what you're buying, right? This is bad debt. High risk." "I know exactly what I'm buying," I tell him. "I'm buying control." The fluorescent lights hum overhead. I watch his finger hover over the scanner. He looks at me, waiting for a flinch. I don't give him one. I stand straight, my shoulders square, my eyes locked on the screen. "Done," he says. The printer whirs, spitting out a final confirmation. I take the paper. I am now the sole owner of the Marsh mortgage. I own the dirt under their feet. I own the roof I supposedly spent 8 years paying to fix. I am no longer the daughter waiting for a thank you. I am the creditor who is coming to collect. I walk back to my car. The wind is cold, biting at my face, but I don't feel it. I sit in the driver's seat and look at the house title in the folder. Thomas and Susan are currently sitting in that living room, probably laughing about how they handled me. They're probably toasting to Marcus's billion-dollar future. They don't know the ground has already shifted. They don't know that the keys in their pockets don't belong to them anymore. I put the car in gear. The engine idles, a low, powerful growl in the quiet afternoon. I have the receipts. I have the debt. And soon, I'm going to have the house. Time to pay up, Thomas, I whisper. I drive away, the city lights beginning to flicker on in the distance, sharp and cold against the dark. The game is over. I'm just waiting for the right moment to turn out the lights. The humid Kentucky night hangs heavy over the Marsh estate, thick with the scent of mown grass and the looming stench of a lie. It is May 24th. I am 32 today. In the world of the living, that usually means a cake and a few phone calls. In the world of the Marshes, it means I am a ghost haunting my own birthday. I arrive at the house in a charcoal suit, the fabric stiff and clean. I don't pull up to the front circle where the valets are parking Lexuses and Benzes. I drive around to the gravel lot behind the garage. Susan is waiting at the kitchen door. She doesn't say hello. She doesn't look at my face. She looks at my feet. She tosses a grimy handkerchief at my chest. "Wipe your heels before you step on the oak, Rosie," she says, her voice as thin as a used check. "And stay in the corners. Only speak if someone asks you a direct question. This is Marcus's night. Don't ruin the mood with your work talk." I catch the cloth. I look at the floor I technically own now. I wipe the dust from my leather shoes and give her a small, dry smile. She takes it for obedience. I take it as the last time I ever take an order in this house. Inside, the ballroom is a fever dream of fake it till you make it. The crystal chandeliers are dimmed, casting a soft, expensive glow that hides the cracks in the plaster. A jazz trio is tucked into the corner, playing something smooth and unrecognizable over the roar of 100 people trying to sound richer than they are. The smell of the room hits me. Heavy perfume, expensive cigars, and the sharp, metallic tang of desperation. Thomas stands near the piano, his face flushed from the open bar. He clinks a silver fork against his champagne flute. The sound is high and arrogant. "Friends, family, investors," Thomas booms, his voice carrying that practiced country club weight. "Tonight we celebrate a new chapter. My son-in-law Marcus is a man of vision, a genius who sees the future of American logistics." He pauses, his eyes finding me in the shadows by the catering tray. A few people turn. Alyssa is leaning on Marcus's shoulder, her Prada bag clutched like a trophy. "Even my daughter, Rosie, is here," Thomas adds, a mocking edge to his grin. "She's a logistics clerk herself, a wage earner for the government. She knows the dirty side of the business. But Marcus? Marcus is the brain. He's the one who's going to take the Marsh name into the stratosphere." A few people chuckle. Marcus puffs out his chest, adjusting the hublot on his wrist. He looks like a man who has already spent the $50 million he hasn't earned yet. "To prove it," Marcus says, stepping forward into the spotlight, "I wanted to share something special with our top-tier partners." He reaches onto a velvet-lined table and pulls out a bottle. The room goes quiet. Even the jazz trio slows down. It's a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, 1980. To the people in this room, that bottle is a holy relic. $30,000 of liquid status. "A vision like mine requires a palate to match," Marcus brags, his fingers hovering over the seal. 1980, a year of strength, a year of class, just like the firm we're building. I walk forward. I don't rush. I move with the steady, quiet step of someone who has spent years counting inventory in the dark. I reach the podium and take the bottle right out of his hand. Marcus freezes. "Rosie, what the hell are you doing?" I don't answer him. I hold the bottle up to the light of the chandelier. The crowd leans in, 100 pairs of eyes following the amber liquid. I point a single finger at the tax stamp on the neck. "You should have looked at the glue, Marcus," I say. My voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the jazz like a serrated blade. The 1980 tax stamps were printed on blue decomposing paper. They had a matte finish. This has the glossy sheen of synthetic glue, the kind they didn't start using until 2005. I turn the bottle, the light catching the cheap ink on the label. You spent $30,000 on caramel-colored grain alcohol and a forged sticker, I tell him, my eyes locking onto his. You can't even tell a real bottle from a basement refill. How are you going to manage a $50 million logistics line? The silence is absolute. The only sound is the hum of the air conditioner and the quiet gasp from a director at Heritage Cask. Marcus's face turns a violent shade of gray. Alyssa's hand drops from his arm. Thomas looks like he's having a stroke. He tries to speak, but the words die in his throat. The elite of Louisville are staring at the bottle, then at Marcus, then at the exits. The smell of cheap alcohol from the fake bourbon starts to rise, filling the space where their dignity used to be. I set the bottle back on the table with a firm click. Just as the first whispers start to ripple through the crowd, Julian, the lead waiter, walks into the room. He isn't carrying a tray of appetizers. He's carrying a black lacquered box. He walks past Marcus. He walks past Thomas. He stops in front of Susan. "A delivery for the lady of the house," Julian says, his voice flat. Susan looks at me, her eyes wide with a sudden, sharp fear. She reaches for the lid. Inside, resting on top of a single white orchid, is a legal document with a red header. It isn't a birthday card. It's a 30-day notice to vacate. The jazz music stops. My birthday party has finally begun. The silence in the ballroom is heavy, like the air right before a transformer blows in a summer storm. The smell of that cheap, fake bourbon is still hanging in the air, mixing with the sweat of 100 people who suddenly realize they are standing in a house of cards. Susan stands there, her hand trembling as she reaches into the black lacquered box Julian placed on the table. She's still trying to keep her mask on, looking for a piece of jewelry or a check to save her social life. She pulls out a single card. Her eyes scan the handwriting. I watch her face turn the color of gray ash. The card says, "Happy 32nd birthday to me. Here is your 20-year ledger." Underneath the card is a thick stack of bank transfers held together by a heavy rubber band. Susan drops the box. The sound of it hitting the hardwood floor is like a gunshot. The papers spill out across the rug. These are the receipts. Every single dollar I sent home for 8 years. Every payment I made from a dirt floor office while the wind rattled the metal roof above me. Every cent of my hazard pay that Thomas said was going toward the family legacy. Thomas lunges forward, shoving a chair aside. He grabs the largest stack of legal papers from the box. His breathing is loud and wet, the sound of a man who has spent too much time drinking and not enough time looking at the truth. He reads the header out loud in a voice that cracks like dry wood. Notice of default and transfer of ownership. The room goes stone cold. The director from Heritage Cask takes a step back, his face tightening. "What is this, Rosie?" Thomas growls, his eyes bloodshot. "What did you do?" I do not move. I do not shout. I stand in the center of the hall, my shoulders square, my chin up. I am the only person in this room who is not sinking. "I bought the debt, Thomas," I say. My voice carries through the silent room, flat and final. "That secondary loan you took out to fund Marcus, the one where you used the house as collateral, the bank sold it to an anonymous holding company 2 days ago. I am that company. I own the dirt you are standing on. I own the roof over your head. And as of 10 minutes ago, I am the landlord of this estate." Susan lets out a sharp, choked sob. She looks at the guests, the elites of Louisville who are already reaching for their coats. She is realizing that her perfect life is being hauled out with the trash. I reach into my suit pocket and pull out one last sheet of paper. I do not hand it to him. I drop it onto the table, right on top of the fake Pappy Van Winkle bottle. It is the $200,000 retirement withdrawal. "Look at the signature, Thomas," I tell him. "Look at the way the letter T hooks at the bottom. You told me you invested that money in the firm. You told me you were proud to support Marcus. Thomas stares at the paper. He looks at the signature Marcus forged. Then he looks at Marcus, who is trying to edge toward the back door. Thomas is not a smart man, but even he can see the hook. He realizes his golden boy, the genius he chose over his own daughter, has been bleeding him dry for months. You stole it, Thomas whispers, looking at Marcus. You took my retirement. Marcus does not apologize. He does not even have the guts to look ashamed. He just sneers, his face twisting into something ugly and desperate. You were going to lose it anyway, old man, Marcus barks. I was trying to build something real. He tries to run, but the two men I hired are already at the exit. They are not in uniform, just two guys in heavy jackets who know how to stand their ground. They grab Marcus by the arms and pin him against the wall. His Hublot watch clatters against the wood. The guests do not wait for another word. It is a stampede of silk and pearls. The VIPs and the investors push past each other, heading for the front door like they are fleeing a fire. They do not look at Thomas. They do not look at Susan. To them, the Marsh family is already dead. If you have ever had to watch the people who were supposed to love you choose a liar over your truth, hit that like button right now. It is time we stop letting them hide behind family values. Comment the word house if you are ready to see what happens when the walls finally come down on people like this. Subscribe and join me, because I am just getting started with this eviction. Thomas collapses into a chair, the air leaving his lungs in a long, rattling wheeze. He looks around the empty ballroom, at the broken glass and the spilled wine. His castle is a ruin. I walk over to the podium and pick up the microphone. The feedback squeals for a second, sharp and piercing. 30 days, I say. My voice echoes through the empty house, cold as a winter morning. You have 30 days to pack your things and get out. If you are still here on the 31st day, the sheriff will put your furniture on the sidewalk. Do not call me. Do not come to my office. We are done. Susan is on her knees, crying into her hands, but I do not feel a thing. I spent 20 years looking for a reason to stay. Tonight, I found every reason to leave. I turn my back on them. I walk through the ballroom, my boots clicking firmly on the floor. I do not look back at the white pillars or the manicured lawn. I walk out into the rain, the cold water hitting my face. Behind me, the lights of the Marsh estate are still on. But the house is already dark. The ballroom is a graveyard of social ambition. Broken crystal glass crunches under the heels of people who couldn't leave fast enough. The smell of stale gin and the sour odor of a dying reputation hangs in the air. Thomas is at the center of the wreck, his tie loose, his face a violent shade of purple. He's reaching for Sterling, the director of Heritage Cask, trying to grab the sleeve of his tailored suit. Wait, John, it's just a misunderstanding, Thomas shouts, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. My daughter, Rosie, she is coming on board. We are merging her logistics network with Marcus's firm. It is a family powerhouse. She will handle the security, the back end, the whole thing. Sterling stops. He doesn't look at Thomas. He looks at me, standing 10 feet away in the shadows. He hurls Thomas's hand off his arm like he is flicking away a piece of trash. Mr. Marsh, Sterling says, his voice like dry ice. Your daughter sent me a risk assessment on your son-in-law at 8 o'clock this morning. She told me exactly how much of a liability he is. She told me his insurance is a fraud and his routing is a joke. The show is over. Don't call my office again. Sterling walks out, his polished shoes clicking a steady rhythm toward the door. Thomas stands there, his mouth hanging open, his arms hanging limp at his sides. He looks like a balloon that just lost all its air. He turns to me. The panic in his eyes shifts into a familiar, jagged anger. He points toward the heavy oak doors at the back of the hall, his private study. The room where the curtains were always closed. The room where I spent my childhood standing on a rug while he told me how much I owed him for the food in my stomach. In the study, Rosie, he barks. It is the same tone he used when I was 12 and forgot to polish his shoes. Right now, we are going to settle this internal family matter behind closed doors. I do not move. I do not even flinch. I stand in the middle of the empty ballroom, my feet planted firm on the floor I paid for. I look at those oak doors and I do not see power. I see a small, dark box. No, I say. Thomas flinches like I hit him. Excuse me? I do not go into closed rooms with you anymore, Thomas, I tell him. My voice is quiet, but it fills the space. There are no secrets left to keep. Everything you are is out here in the light. If you have something to say it in front of the house you are about to lose. He tries to move toward me, his hands curling into fists, but he stops. He knows he has no leverage. He knows he is a man in a rented suit standing in a house owned by the girl he tried to bury. Susan comes out of the kitchen, her face a mask of smeared mascara and red blotches. She's holding a wet handkerchief, dabbing at her eyes like she's a martyr at a funeral. She looks at the mess on the floor, then at me. How could you? She whispers, her voice rising into a shrill, piercing whine. How could you be so cold, Rosie? Look at your father. Look at your sister. Alyssa is upstairs in hysterics because you destroyed her husband's future. You have ripped this family apart because you could not handle not being the center of attention for one night. I walk over to her. I do not stop until I'm inches away. Susan shrinks back, but I reach out and gently straighten the crooked collar of her silk blouse. I smooth out the fabric with a slow, deliberate touch. I did not rip anything apart, Susan, I say, looking right into her watery eyes. I just turned on the lights. If Alyssa's future is a pile of ash, it is because she married a man who builds with straw. I did not destroy her. I just gave her the invoice for the life she has been living on my dime. I turn away from her and walk to the center of the hall, picking up the black box from the table. I pull out a fresh legal document and lay it flat on the wood. Listen to me, I say, addressing the empty room and the two ghosts standing in it. The 30-day notice is in the box. But because I am a fair landlord, I am giving you an option. If you want to stay in this house until the eviction date, you will pay the market rate rent, starting tonight. Thomas scoffs, a wet, desperate sound. Rent? This is my house. It was your house, I remind him. Now, it is an asset. The rent is $15,000 a month. If the check is not on the kitchen counter by noon tomorrow, the sheriff will be here by sunset to change the locks. No more grace periods. No more family discounts. Alyssa's voice screams from the top of the stairs, something about me being a monster. But it sounds like wind through a hollow pipe. It does not touch me. I turn and walk toward the front door. My heels make a steady, heavy sound on the floorboards, the sound of someone who knows exactly where they are going. I do not look back at the pillars or the portraits on the wall. I do not look at the people who raised me to be a victim. I step out into the cool night air. The Louisville humidity is gone, replaced by a sharp, clean breeze. I get into my car and shut the door. The silence is perfect. My phone buzzes in the cup holder. I pick it up. It is a number I recognize. This is Rosie Marsh, I say. Rosie, it is John Sterling, the voice says. He sounds different now, no longer the director, but a man who smells a winner. We have reviewed your risk analysis and your personal logistics portfolio. We are pulling the Marcus contract. We want to talk to you about taking over the Heritage Cask account. Exclusively. Can you be in my office at 8 a.m.? I look at the dark windows of the Marsh estate. The 30-day clock has officially started. I will be there, I say. I put the car in gear and drive down the gravel driveway. I do not look at the rearview mirror. I just watch the road ahead, lit up bright and clear. The 29 days that followed the party were the quietest of my life. I changed my number. I stayed in my small studio apartment, drinking lukewarm coffee and watching the rain turn the Louisville streets into a gray, slick mess. I didn't answer the door. I didn't check the mail. Every frantic call from Thomas, every weeping voicemail from Susan, and every venomous text from Alyssa went straight to Maya's office. I heard they were scrambling. I heard Thomas was hitting up old golf buddies for 5-figure loans, trying to scrounge up the $15,000 in rent just to keep the neighbors from seeing the for lease sign. But the Louisville elite have a short memory for losers. The phones went dead. The invitations stopped coming. The Marsh name was already a ghost. On the morning of the 30th day, The sun stayed behind a wall of cold, heavy clouds. The air was sharp, smelling of wet asphalt and dormant oak trees. I drove my Jeep to the edge of the property and parked across the street, hidden behind a row of overgrown hedges. I didn't come to gloat. I came to witness the end of a 20-year theft. I sat there with a paper cup of black coffee, my back straight against the seat, watching the house. At exactly 8 o'clock, the sound of heavy tires on gravel broke the silence. 3 white cruisers with the Jefferson County Sheriff's decal pulled into the circular driveway. The red and blue lights started flashing. No sirens, just a steady rhythmic pulse that reflected off the white pillars of the house. It was a quiet, official kind of violence. Maya stepped out of the lead car. She wasn't wearing her usual bright colors. She was in a sharp, black wool coat, holding a thick manila envelope. She walked up to the front door and knocked. Not a polite tap. A heavy legal thud that echoed across the lawn. The door opened after a minute. Thomas stood there in a silk robe that cost more than my first car, but his face looked like a crumpled paper bag. He tried to speak, his hands shaking as he reached for the doorframe. Maya didn't wait. She pulled the court-ordered eviction notice from the envelope and held it out. Her voice didn't carry to where I was sitting, but I saw her lips move. The law doesn't care about family legacies or status. It only cares about the signature on the deed. Behind the cruisers, 2 large moving trucks backed into the grass, their tires tearing deep ruts into the perfectly manicured lawn. A crew of 6 men in heavy canvas jackets hopped out. They didn't look at Thomas. They didn't look at Susan, who had appeared in the hallway, clutching a lace nightgown to her throat. The men just started moving. This is the part the movies get wrong. It isn't a dramatic argument. It is a factory line of humiliation. The first thing to go was the heavy leather armchair from Thomas's study, the one he called his throne. 2 men hauled it out and set it right on the grass. Then came the mahogany side tables, the crystal lamps, and the rugs. I watched as the Marsh heritage was piled into heaps on the sidewalk. A neighbor's curtain across the street twitched. Then another. The whole block was watching the kings of the hill get stripped bare. Alyssa came screaming out of the house 10 minutes later. She was wearing leggings and an oversized sweater, clutching 3 Prada bags to her chest, like they were life rafts. She tripped over a box of her own shoes that a mover had dropped. Her expensive leather heels hit the mud, and she stayed there, sobbing into the dirt. Susan stood on the porch, her face frozen in a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. She looked at her fine china being stacked into cardboard boxes and her vintage wine collection being hauled away. Everything I had paid for. Everything they had bled out of me for 2 decades. It was all sitting in the cold Louisville wind, waiting for a trip to a storage unit they couldn't afford. I gripped my coffee cup. I remembered the nights at the base when the wind would howl through the gaps in the plywood walls. I remembered the taste of the dust and the way my bones ached from sleeping on a cot for months. I had promised myself then that I would own a piece of the world. I just didn't think I'd have to take it back from my own blood. The house was half empty when Marcus appeared. He didn't come out the front. He tried to slip out the kitchen door at the side of the house, carrying a small silver suitcase and a laptop bag. He was moving fast, his eyes darting toward the street. He thought the sheriff was the only problem. He thought he could fade away before the real bill came due. He didn't make it to his car. The screech of tires was loud enough to make Alyssa stop crying. 2 black SUVs swerved into the driveway, blocking Marcus's path. 4 men in dark windbreakers stepped out. They didn't have flashing lights. They had the kind of stillness that makes your blood run cold. "Marcus Thorne?" the lead man asked. He didn't wait for an answer. He pulled a badge from his belt. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a warrant for your arrest regarding wire fraud and identity theft." Marcus dropped the suitcase. The sound of the metal hitting the driveway was sharp and final. He didn't fight. He didn't even yell. He just withered. The special agent spun him around and pressed him against the side of the SUV. The silver cuffs clicked into place, a dry metallic sound that signaled the absolute end of the lie. Alyssa let out a long, jagged wail from the lawn, but I didn't look at her. I looked at Marcus as they shoved him into the back seat. The brain of the operation was headed to a cage. I put the Jeep in gear. I didn't need to see them pull away. I didn't need to hear Susan's final plea or see Thomas sit on his leather chair in the middle of the yard. I had the house. I had the truth. And for the first time in 32 years, I had my life. I drove away, the red and blue lights fading in my rearview mirror. The road ahead was wide, dark, and completely mine. The silver handcuffs clicked into place with a dry metallic bite. The sound was final, cutting through the heavy Louisville humidity like a guillotine. Marcus Thorne didn't look like a visionary anymore. He looked like a man made of wet cardboard. His silk shirt was stuck to his back, and his eyes were darting toward the silver suitcase that lay abandoned in the mud of the driveway. The FBI agents didn't speak. They didn't have to. The paperwork spoke for them: wire fraud, identity theft, and 5 counts of financial forgery. Alyssa stood 10 feet away, clutching her Prada bags as if they were shields. She didn't run to Marcus. She didn't cry out for him. I watched from my car as she reached into her bag and pulled out a thin piece of paper, the marriage license they had flaunted just months ago. She didn't hesitate. She gripped the edges and ripped it down the center. The sound of the paper tearing was the only thing louder than the idling engines of the black SUVs. She tossed the scraps into the dirt near Marcus's feet. "I'm not going down with you," she spat. Her voice was thin, sharp, and entirely focused on her own survival. She didn't look at his face. She looked at the SUV as it pulled away, Marcus's billion-dollar brain headed for a federal cage. 3 weeks later, the silence in the city felt different. It wasn't the silence of a house of cards waiting to fall. It was the silence of a clean slate. Thomas and Susan moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the industrial district. The building is a gray, slab-sided box that smells of stale grease and industrial-strength floor cleaner. There are no white pillars here. There is no oak dining table. Thomas sits at a laminate kitchen table that wobbles every time he moves. He wears a stained white undershirt and stares at the wall for hours. The card from the Louisville Country Club arrived in the mail yesterday. Denied. Revoked. His legacy had been stripped down to a 1099 tax form and a $50 million ghost that will haunt his credit score until the day he dies. Susan spends her days dabbing at her eyes with cheap paper towels, looking out the window at a dumpster that serves as their new view. They are ghosts in a city that used to know their names. The most poetic part of the sentence, however, wasn't handed down by a judge. It was handed down by the economy. The night shift at the Regional Logistics Warehouse starts at 10 p.m. The lights inside are a harsh, flickering yellow that makes everyone look sick. The air is thick with the smell of cardboard dust and diesel exhaust from the loading bays. Alyssa stands on a cold, concrete floor for 8 hours a shift. Her hands, once soft and manicured, are now red and swollen, covered in tiny paper cuts from taping thousands of boxes. She wears a blue vest with a name tag that says Packer. She's a number on a spreadsheet. Every time the alarm blares for a high-priority shipment, she flinches. She spends her nights lifting, stacking, and hauling freight. The exact grunt work she used to sneer at when I came home in my uniform. She is earning $12 an hour. It would take her a lifetime of packing boxes just to pay for the wine she poured down her throat while Marcus was bleeding my retirement fund dry. She is finally doing the shipping clerk job she thought was beneath her. I don't go to the warehouse to watch her. I don't need to. The knowledge that she is finally feeling the weight of a crate in her hands is enough. My new office is in a glass tower overlooking the river. The air is clean, smelling of fresh roasted coffee and the faint, crisp scent of new paper. The silence here is different. It is the silence of a machine that is running with perfect precision. I sit at a desk made of reclaimed wood, my back straight, my white shirt sleeves rolled up to my elbows. John Sterling sits across from me. He's not looking at me as a daughter or a victim. He's looking at me as the most reliable logistics partner in the state. 5 years, Rosie, Sterling says. He slides a heavy black folder across the desk. Exclusive rights to the Heritage Cask distribution line. We want your routing, your security, and your people. No one else. I pick up the pen. It is heavy, made of solid steel. I don't hesitate. I sign my name at the bottom of the contract. The ink is black and sharp. a permanent mark of the world I built with my own hands. I don't feel a rush of heat. I feel a cool, steady pulse of satisfaction. I pick up my mug of black coffee and take a sip. It's hot. It's real. It belongs to me. The truth is a hard thing to swallow for people like Thomas and Susan. They spent 30 years trying to convince me that family was a one-way street where I was the only one driving. They thought blood was a debt I could never finish paying. They were wrong. Blood is just a biological fact. It doesn't mean loyalty. It doesn't mean respect. And it certainly doesn't mean I'm obligated to fund a lie. Discipline is what built this office. Discipline forges power. Discipline created this contract. And discipline is what allowed me to turn my back on the rot without a single tear. I look out the window at the river. The sun is starting to climb, hitting the water in sharp, bright flashes. In a warehouse 5 miles away, the morning whistle is about to blow, and Alyssa will be clocking out with an aching back and $20 in her pocket. I set my pen down. The sound it makes against the wood is quiet, but it is the loudest sound in the world. It is the sound of a woman who is no longer waiting for a seat at the table. I didn't just take the house, I took the future. I stand up and walk toward the window, my reflection clear in the glass. I look at the woman staring back at me. She's 32. She is a business owner. And for the first time in her life, she's completely, dangerously free. The game is over. I didn't just win, I changed the rules. The morning sun over the Ohio River is cold, sharp, and honest. It doesn't hide the rust on the bridges or the grit on the asphalt. It just lays it all out. I like it that way. I'm sitting in my new office, the air smelling of fresh coffee and the faint, ozone scent of a high-end printer. My desk is a solid slab of walnut. No drawers to hide secrets, no locked boxes for forged signatures. Just a clean surface and a stack of new contracts. It's been 6 months since the sheriff hauled Thomas's leather throne onto the sidewalk. 6 months since Marcus Thorne traded his silk suits for a coarse orange jumpsuit. My phone buzzes on the desk. It's a number I don't recognize. A 502 area code, followed by the string of digits that usually belongs to a payphone at a gas station or a bus terminal. I know who it is. I can almost smell the cheap cigarettes and the stale, desperate air of that 2-bedroom apartment Susan and Thomas are cramming into. I look at the screen. For 20 years, a call like this would have made my throat seize up. I would have felt the familiar weight of the good daughter guilt, the crushing need to fix a mess I didn't make. I would have wondered if they had enough to eat, if the heater was working, if they finally loved me enough to say thank you. I don't wonder anymore. I pick up the phone, my thumb hovering over the red icon. My chest is light. My pulse is a steady, slow drum. I don't feel anger. I don't feel hate. I just feel the quiet, cold facts of the situation. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted an ATM. They didn't want a family. They wanted a safety net they could set on fire whenever they felt like it. I press the button. Block. The silence that follows is the loudest, most beautiful sound I've ever heard. It's the sound of a debt being paid in full. Sunday comes around, and the humidity is finally breaking. I'm standing on the back porch of my new place, a small, sturdy house with a big yard and a fence that doesn't need a coat of white paint to look good. The smell of charcoal smoke and hickory wood chips rises from the grill. I've got 3 slabs of ribs on the rack and a cooler full of cold beer on the deck. Maya is sitting at the picnic table, her feet up on the bench, laughing at something a guy named Miller just said. Miller is one of the drivers I hired 3 months ago. He's a guy who spent 12 years on the line, just like me. He's got scars on his forearms and a look in his eyes that says he's seen the bottom of the barrel and decided to climb out. There are no silk vests here, no $300 bottles of fake bourbon, just paper plates, calloused hands, and the kind of laughter that doesn't have a hidden price tag. We don't talk about visionary scaling or global legacies. We talk about the gearboxes on the new trucks and the best way to avoid the construction on I-65. I look at the scar on my wrist, the one from the loading bay accident that Thomas used to call my failure. In the afternoon sun, the skin is pale and tough. It doesn't hurt when it rains anymore. It's just a mark on a map. a reminder of where I've been. My company is growing, but I'm not shoving the profits into a country club locker or a forged retirement fund. I started a small grant last month. It's for the women coming back home, the ones who spent their 20s in the mud and came back to a family that didn't know how to look them in the eye. It's a hand up, a way to get their own keys, their own names, their own lives. The Marsh name used to be a brand. Now it's just a footnote in a fraud case. My name is Rosie. And for the first time in 32 years, that's enough. I pick up my beer and take a long, cold pull. The condensation is wet against my palm. I look out at the yard, at the people I chose to be here. This isn't a family business, it's a family of choice. Built on respect, built on truth, built on the grit it takes to survive the people who are supposed to protect you. I step toward the edge of the porch, looking right into the light. My voice is steady, the same way it was when I told the bank to take the house. Listen to me. If you are sitting at a table where they only love you for what you can give them, you are in the wrong house. If you are pouring your life into a cup that has a hole in the bottom, stop. Blood isn't a contract. It isn't a reason to let someone bleed you dry. It's a biological fact, and that's it. Loyalty is earned. Respect is required. And your life is not a down payment for someone else's ego. The door is right behind you. It's heavy and it might be locked, but you've got the strength to kick it down. I know you do. Share this with someone who is still standing in the dark, waiting for a thank you that is never coming. Subscribe if you're ready to stop being the machine that keeps a lie running. My name is Rosie Marsh. I've paid my dues, I've survived the fire, and I'm finally home. The grill sizzles, the sun dips low. I turn my back on the ghosts and walk toward the table. The game is over, and I'm the one holding the keys.